You ever heard of Down
Let's
with the
do it.
Sickness?
I've heard of it.
Down with the Reeses, dude. They used to be super, super good
That was
at
their
rock
band name?
music. Yep.
That was
Down with the
horrible.
Reeses.
Wait.
That was
Cory was in a band.
That's true.
Solar.
Really?
When he was like 12.
Soular.
Dude, that's like a full circle moment because now we're in Sola.
That's
and We're
right.
about to do
Nice.
a podcast.
I tried to
That's
find a
sweet.
CD. I couldn't.
It's somewhere.
It's out there. I know.
I think
I
you
got
have one in your office.
Do I? Probably in my office.
Debo said he
Closet.
could hook me
You
up.
got
So we're
he has
good.
a picture of me and him in his office.
No.
Yeah, that was stashed there.
Really?
By
I'm
Ryan.
not saying it was stashed there. I'm just saying Cory's got a picture of Ryan and Cory in his office.
Did you ever find the jelly that was placed in your candle?
I don't believe I did.
I'm excited for you to now go tomorrow and open up your candle and know that last year.
Oh yes, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I didn't
that's
know
old
who
news.
put it in there. I figured
No,
it was
it
Andrew.
wasn't me.
It was Andrew, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah,
But no, I can't say any names.
Andrew.
It was Andrew. I hate that he just made a cameo verbally in our podcast.
Well, I mean, we haven't even started yet.
Right.
We haven't done the welcome.
Yeah,
I
so
know,
that
but-
doesn't need to make it in.
Every once in a
Because
while.
we'll hear about it forever.
Are you
Right.
good?
I don't
Here we
know why,
go.
but it feels like we need to pray again.
No, we're good. All right, everybody. Hey, welcome to the Every Dad podcast. We got Ryan, we got Ty, we got
Hello.
Rob, and for one time only, Cory
Really?
Gann.
Only one.
Only
Once?
once.
You're already cutting him
I
out.
don't-
He does really
I
good.
voted against having you here, so I don't even.
I figured.
Well, I mean, I'm a little bitter towards you, Cory, but it's fine.
Is it the hair?
Well, you did talk trash about me a few episodes ago.
I don't think I talked trash about you.
No, you did.
Told you he
And
What did
Ty
I
stood-
say?
Ty stood up for me.
I think
did I
you were
say?
the
I
only
told you
one
he
that
watched.
did. I told you he watched.
Yeah. Longtime listener, longtime friend of Brian. Hey, I mean, there's probably going to be people that are jealous of our relationship. So
Yeah.
just kind of be careful all the good things you say about me
Yeah.
as we have conversations.
I'll be
But
real careful.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm pretty
Well,
sure I've seen an episode of Between Two Ferns start this exact same way. I'm pretty sure this is Zach and Bradley Cooper right now.
Oh, my gosh. Look, I mean, yeah.
That's good.
Cory and I go way back. For
Yeah.
11, is 11 years way back?
Yeah.
Sure.
Sure.
What did you
we
think
go
the
way-
first time you met me?
Honestly, I don't know. I was trying to figure you out because one, you have one mode.
Yeah.
Like you're not ever sad, you're not ever mad, you're not ever like extremely just over the top. You have the Cory mode. And then Anthony was with you,
yeah.
and I was just trying not to get made fun of by him.
Yeah. That's good.
So I'm sitting there
It's
at
tough.
both of you guys, and like I would ask you questions, and you would give me a 2-word answer,
Sounds about right.
and it drove me crazy. Like I really tried to pull stuff out of you. Like for 11 years, I've
Good
tried to
luck.
get stuff out of you, and you won't ever. So I hope tonight, ladies and
Yeah, we'll
gentlemen, I
see.
hope tonight's better.
Yeah.
because-
Two-word answers tonight.
yeah.
So, Cory, what's your deepest secret?
Oh my gosh.
You know.
Yeah. Oh, see, there you go.
That's right.
Nice.
Anyway, we're happy to have you, Cory Gann.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. Happy to have Cory Gann right here on this podcast. But no, for real.
Cut the
Like
tension
we
with the knife.
we invited Cory Gann because you are. Tell us your title. We all work together at Highland Park Baptist Church. What is your title?
Minister of Worship and Missions.
Minister of Worship and Missions.
Something like that.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
How did you not
Might
know
have
It's on the
made it up.
website.
I mean, I knew he did those things. I don't think I've ever heard him say, like, this is what I'm pretty sure it was just, I'm Cory.
Well, that's pretty much it.
So.
He's the guy that stands on stage and leads us in wonderful songs of worship to our Lord Jesus Christ
Hopefully.
and missions.
And missions.
So that's kind of going to be our topic tonight is, missional families. So buckle up, man. We're probably going to ask you some
Let's do it.
questions about what it means to be missional in families. But
I'm
I
ready.
know Ty has a question for you.
I really don't.
Yeah, you
but
do. You said you wanted to ask him this question.
You want me to? Well, I've got multiple questions.
Well, the one
Just
to start
do
it
it
off.
light.
Well,
man.
why don't we
Dude,
just start
he
it
went
off
all,
then?
like,
We'll just start it
serious
off
on
from the
us.
very
Jeez.
beginning. And we'll just say, so missions, when I think about
Yes.
missions feels like a very, like, big, not necessarily scary word, but it almost feels like, in the context of church, is pretty much the only time I've ever heard the word
Yeah.
missions. So maybe clarify, like, what would you say that missions is? So you're the minister of missions. Like, what is missions?
I thought you wanted to ask him his funniest thing on. Are you getting there? Did I spoil it?
No, you didn't spoil it.
Sorry.
You made it better.
All right, go ahead. What is missions,
What
Corey?
is missions? Okay. Which
Yeah,
one?
yeah.
I'm answering what is missions.
What is
Sure, why
missions?
not? Because we don't know what we're doing.
I would say there is the mission of the church, which is to spread the gospel, and then the church uses the word missions to, going to share the gospel. Whether that's out of our context, that's not here in Panama City. We wouldn't call necessarily going to Next Gen a mission trip, but going to another city or out of the country would be a mission trip.
With matching
To share the
t-shirts.
with matching t-shirts always. I do not do
Yeah.
that.
Gotta have it.
But yeah, that's what a mission trip, going on a short-term mission trip or a long-term or,
I would love to see you in a group of people with matching T-shirts, Corey.
Oh, I've done it. Doing a choir tour every year.
Oh,
I don't think I've ever seen you.
Yeah, you're the
match
only one
either.
that
Ryan
doesn't wear
never
the
matches
t-shirt.
anyone.
Yeah.
Literally, we have assigned shirts for days, and then he's like,
No, I
I'm
don't
just
We
gonna
have
wear this."
we have color coordinated days that go along with the stuff, and So okay, so missions,
Yes.
great. So you have been on. Do you know off the top of your head like how many missions trips that you've been on?
A lot.
Yeah.
More than 5?
Yeah.
Between 5 and 10. More than
8
10.
to 10, yeah.
8 to 10.
Yeah.
Okay. What
I mean,
is the
that's overseas.
So you've
Yeah.
been 8 to 10 overseas missions trips.
Yes.
Nice. So what would you say? Do you have like a favorite spot that you've ever gone to?
I spent the longest in Ecuador. I spent 6 weeks there when I was in college, so probably Ecuador. But Honduras is working its way up there.
Okay.
Didn't you spend some time in Egypt?
I went to Egypt for 10 days. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was longer than that.
No, it was 10 days. That was actually my first trip. That was pretty cool. Got to hang out with a missionary and
The
see what he does.
pyramids.
Got to see the pyramids.
Got to hang out with the pyramids.
Got to hang out with the
Did you see
pyramids.
any
and the
mummies?
Sphinx. I did. Yep.
For real?
Yeah.
Did they?
Were they
chase
walking around?
You?
Yeah.
I don't think that's right.
That's not real.
You just got to go.
So
I believe
okay.
It
Corey.
doesn't work that way.
So you've been on a bunch of different mission trips. Do you have like a craziest moment or
Here it is.
or a craziest story
This is what I wanted to find out.
from all of the
Oh, man.
missions experiences that you've had?
Yeah, I'll give you a few.
Probably one of the craziest. Let me tell this story, Corey.
Okay.
One of the craziest, times that Corey and I have hung out together. The first time we did a conference in Dallas. So it's not really a mission
wow.
trip. I just want to interrupt the story, tell a story about Corey.
Yeah.
We did this conference in Dallas. I was speaking, Corey was playing, and we get on a plane, and these people start just turning around and looking at us like.
We're in Houston at this point, by the way.
Yeah. Just kind of weird. Like, we flew from Panama City to Houston, then to Dallas. So we're sitting in Houston, and these people on the plane kept turning around just like looking like they knew us, but we didn't know them. And the next morning, we're on this we got delayed, had to stay overnight in Houston. The next morning, we're on this tram to get back to the airport, and these same people are there.
Oh, wow.
And they're looking at us again, really weird. And so we're like, what's going on? They turn around and they say, hey, we're from Highland Park. Cool. Like, man, so happy to see you. They look at me and go, hey, aren't you the one that leads the music?
You?
I went,
Yeah.
man, I do look just like Cory
Nice.
Gann. They can't even tell us apart,
They
man.
did also say they thought we were terrorists.
That's
so.
true. Well, we don't want to
Oh,
talk about that. So anyway, I'm sorry. I interrupted just because
Yeah.
I wanted the spotlight for a second. Go ahead.
It took a hard turn.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's great.
It was downhill quick. I would say worst experience was getting bed bugs
Oh.
in Ecuador. Yeah, that was.
And you said that
awful.
was one of your favorite places to go.
It was. Yeah.
I love that place.
We went to this retreat center on the coast, and everybody was like, well, we thought it was mosquitoes at first. Me and the other Cory that I was with, and so we wore long pants and long jackets and gloves so the mosquitoes wouldn't get us. And then as we're leaving, the people were like, "Oh, you could have put some kind of powder on your mattress because there are bed bugs there." And that would have been nice to know.
Yeah.
To start, that would have been nice.
As you were leaving, they
As we're leaving, yeah.
Well, one of the ways you can tell if it's bed bugs is if they walk away all smug.
Yeah, one office reference. Craziest was probably
That got me.
we were in the mountains of Ecuador, and I was sharing the gospel. We were doing the bead presentation. So Pastor Stephen had done one, and then so I was doing the next one. And it's this lady and her 3 or 4 kids and their little dog. And I'm standing there, I'm giving the, black, red, white, all the colors. And the kids start laughing at me. And I'm like, okay. And I look down and their dog is just peeing all over my pants on my leg. Yeah. So the rest of the day I walked around with dog pee.
Nice.
Sharing the gospel with people.
No change of clothes. No
No
nothing.
change of clothes.
Just,
No.
here we are.
Top
Did
of
it
a
mess up
mountain.
your shoes?
No. No. But they thought it was pretty funny.
I thought it was going to be way worse than that.
Yeah. Well,
That's the craziest.
I mean,
thing
it was
that's happened to you.
Well, not the craziest, but there's some
safest
bathroom
thing.
stories, but I
Okay.
can't tell
Yeah.
those.
I
Yeah.
understand.
I don't want to talk
I
about that.
understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So what initially, like, why? I mean, you're obviously you're pretty decent at leading worship and playing guitar, and you have a voice of an angel, whatever. But what stirred your heart for missions? Like, is this a calling in your life, or you just really like it, or kind of what made you feel led to do this?
I would say like my calling to ministry happened when I was 16 at camp, and they always talk about missions at camp.
Right.
So that was kind of like it was
Right.
kind of the romantic thing, with they kind of romanticize it. Missions is awesome, all this kind of stuff. So that was the start of it, and then I kind of ran from the calling for a little bit, and then went to a thing called Collegiate Week at Ridgecrest, and in North Carolina, and I knew then that God was calling me to ministry. I'd kind of gone through engineering and IT at Gulf Coast, and I was like, Calc 2 is not my thing, IT is not my thing, and so God was kind of shutting doors. But
I never made it to the first
You're
one.
in good
Yeah.
company.
Yeah.
But I did
so
not make that.
I knew he was calling me to missions. I thought, which he was, but I came back and was talking with Pastor Steve and Pastor Carl about what I wanted to do, and I think it was one of them said, no matter what you do, music's going to be a part of what you do. So you can do missions, but you need to keep doing music. So that was kind of, I stayed here, did music, and
you've
they
done
kinda-
well at that. It's been okay for your life.
It's been okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worked out. But I was happy when they asked me to do missions. Yeah, it's been great. And then when I started, it was COVID,
Yeah.
so we didn't do anything.
Wait. So, okay. So, and this is me I've only been on staff now for just over 3 years. So I guess I didn't realize that. So you were just music, is that right?
When I first started, he was music
youth.
And
he was my entry.
Yeah.
really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And then
So much fun.
And
Yeah.
then from there, so in what, 2020? Is that when you took on the role of?
It was
No,
like,
because you went from like they
it
pulled
was
you out.
2016.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
they
went to
pulled
straight
you out
music.
of student ministry and started doing a lot of other stuff, and then they added that,
Gotcha.
that role.
Okay.
yeah, but I remember when you got missions, there was like 2 or 3 projects immediately.
Yeah.
That we were jumping into, got the ball rolling on a few locations internationally, and then
Yeah.
the world shut down, and it
Yep.
kind of just
Yeah,
closed
I
the door on a bunch of
had
stuff.
a lady in the church who was going to Guatemala, and we were going to do our dentistry trip there. And then COVID happened, and it was like done. And you had to have a shot. You had to have one of the shots to go to Guatemala, and same thing for Honduras, but that's lax now. But yeah.
So one of the things, and this is just me being a part of, the church here at Highland Park, but I've started to kind of notice this consistency, and maybe the kind of thought process behind choosing a location for missions versus you see a lot of different churches that kind of just we're going to go over here and we're going to do this missions project over here, and then the next year they kind of like just circle one and they go, okay, we're going to go over here and do this. But over the last several years, it seems like, at least, and my ultimate question is I'd love to hear kind of what your thought process on this is, but it seems like we've kind of chosen Honduras, and we've really kind of started to do some very consistent work there. Would you say that's like an intentional thing? Was that
Yes.
like from the very beginning, or is that something that's kind of developed? Or
So I loved Ecuador, but I would go down there and share the gospel, and I couldn't tell them a church to go to because I just didn't know
Yeah.
the churches. So with Honduras, we stay at a seminary. They're teaching the pastors how to, preach expositorily, if that's a word.
Sounds great. I love it.
And they and I can go share the gospel with somebody. Like somebody can come in the dental clinic. We can share the gospel with them, and I can point them to about 5 different churches
Yeah.
within walking distance that I know is going to preach the gospel. And so that's the thing about short-term missions is I can go share the gospel, but if I can't point them to church, then we're missing half the equation
Yeah.
of discipleship. So that's a big one for me.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So the consistency, building the relationships there, and
Mm-hmm.
then being able to actually have kind of a structure, because we've helped kind of create like a seminary and that sort of thing, right?
Well, they had it. They
Honduras,
had it
already
there.
had that. Okay.
Yeah. But
But they've been able to develop some relationships with churches in their town, and then we've kind of worked with. I know whenever I was there, I worked with a specific church.
Yeah.
Staying at the seminary,
yeah.
people related to the people at the seminary, but
But those pastors came from the seminary,
Yeah,
so we
yeah.
know that they're
Yeah.
they're just looking. I mean, really, when we go down there, we're the sideshow. Hey, the Americans are
Nice.
here.
Yeah.
And just maybe they would never come in church if
Yeah.
if it wasn't for, hey, let me go talk to the American, maybe they'll give me something.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so this podcast is, we want to talk about families and dads and being intentional about that. So how let's kind of move practically into families and missions. Okay, so how do you draw that line, or what's the balance in? All right, I've got missional things that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to connect, people overseas with other people overseas in churches, and we're trying to, rather than just going down there and doing this short-term thing and then we're out, like we're actually strategizing to make sure that they're discipled from place to place to place. But so how do you go from that sort of mentality to bringing missions in your home and in your family? Because as dads, sometimes we compartmentalize our work and our family. Work is work and family is family. But being a missional family is probably something that's overlooked and probably needs to be taught and probably needs to be a focus in families. So how do you do that? How do you transition from missions minister, worship leader to being missional at home?
So my kids are fairly young. My son just turned 2, and my daughter's fixing to turn 7. So they're not at the age where they can go on trips yet. Like I feel like my daughter may be getting close within the next 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
But and really, this past trip was the first time that she's like understood why I'm leaving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is tough.
It's
like,
hard to leave family. Yeah.
I don't get, my wife gets it, and my son doesn't care.
Touchdown.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But my wife, my daughter, this is the first time, like, why are you going down there? And I got to tell her, like, we're going to help people. The trip that I go on, the dental trip, is we're going to help fix their teeth or pull teeth.
Yeah.
And then but before that, we're going to share the gospel with them, because that's the most important thing. And so it kind of clicked with her this time. But back to your question, like, how do you switch that off? I don't know. She just, like, my daughter loves to be at church.
Yeah.
Like today we were leaving, she's like, I want to stay at church. All her friends are there, Lucy and Lindley, and and so she loves to be there. And that's what Pastor Stephen talks about a lot. He made church fun for his kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a part of it. It shouldn't be something that you have to drag them to.
Right.
Just is there a switch off? I don't know.
Well, maybe not a switch off, but like, what are you doing with your wife? Because we know your wife is on board with this, right?
Yeah.
You have to leave, and you want to train your kids and teach your kids to be missional wherever they are. So like,
Yeah.
They're young now, but maybe how can dads model that? Like how can how can dads be missional in the home and with their families?
I mean, just showing them. I mean, to me, there's no greater experience than going on a foreign mission trip.
Yeah.
Not even foreign. I would say just to another context, to another city.
Yeah, sure.
Just because it just gives you the experience. You see a different. You just see a different way of living.
Yeah.
You know, when we go to Honduras, we go to a church and we worship with them, and they're singing songs we know, but they're in a different language.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing to stand there and worship, you know, in a different language, knowing that they're worshiping the same God. So
sorry.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, so I remember, to your point, I mean, I grew up in a pastor's home. I think my first missions trip, I know my first missions trip, I was 11 years old. My dad, my uncle was actually a missionary for the IMB, and he was a missionary at the time in India. And so I got to go to India, and we were just talking about this. 2 back-to-back 9-hour flights with a layover in Paris, so that was pretty fun. And then we go there, you know, and immediately just the culture shock and like all of the crazy, you know, we were in New Delhi. It was like 1 a.m. and it was like 104 degrees. It was crazy. Yeah. You had to wear pants the whole time because that was part of the cultural, you know, norm there. And I remember being like, please let me wear shorts. And then we ended up getting to go up to like this, you know, just crazy mountainside. We hiked in the Himalayas for like almost a full week, and we got to, you know, be on the mountainside, and like we played cricket. I played cricket like on the top of an Indian mountain with
Were you good
like,
at it?
water buffalo. I was decent at it. One of the guides actually got me a cricket set, and I tried to play it here. But
Cricket or crochet?
No, cricket.
Cricket.
Yeah, you know, like
Yeah, like
isn't crochet like what?
Crochet's
that's knitting.
that's
the
like
way-
Wait,
what's the
what's
game
the
where you
little?
hit
What's
the
the game
ball
that you
through
hit the
the
little
hoops?
ball?
croquet.
croquet.
That's croquet.
Yeah.
No,
Croquet.
cricket. You never seen cricket?
Cricket, isn't that
Yeah,
where
you've
they
seen
like?
cricket. The flat bat?
Oh, it lasts like days.
It's like baseball.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
And they bought you a set.
They bought me a set. Yeah, they thought
There's
I'd
a
play it.
cricket
Like, I
set?
couldn't get any of my friends to play it. It was crazy.
Wow.
So I had to play baseball.
Did you have friends?
Oh, some. I was homeschooled, so
Well, yeah.
you know. I mean, that's why I'm decent at voices.
there,
Because if I
buddy.
didn't, you know, and I like, you know, people make fun of me because I laugh at my own jokes. But it's like if I didn't
Who
laugh
else
at
would?
my own jokes,
Yeah.
no one was there to laugh at them. You know what I mean?
Makes sense to me.
Whole different story. So I remember then from there, you know, I've been on I think 4 missions trips as a teenager, but really having, to your point, like that exposure.
Yeah.
I didn't really know anything other than my own like context. And I know you said, you know, I think as a 16-year-old maybe was when you kind of first felt that, you know, your heart stir towards kind of missions and
I hadn't even been on a mission trip yet then. Like
You had not?
out of the country. I hadn't been on a
how
foreign
old were
mission
you when
trip.
you first went?
18.
Okay. So I guess my question ultimately, I remember as a 11-year-old, right, going and doing that. Like, would you say that, like, do you wish that you had gone earlier
Oh,
than
yeah,
18?
yeah.
Like, what would that have done, do you feel like, for you?
Yeah, so like I grew up at Highland Park, so you didn't go on foreign mission trips until like college at Highland Park back then. I just feel like I missed I feel like it would have changed my spiritual walk to go on a foreign mission trip just to see that there's more out there and that it's not just Southern Baptist and this one little church and you know
Right.
there's believers all over the world.
So you said something earlier about, you know, how do we transition from work to being missional in the families, and you said show them, and like one of the things that we've been talking about over the last several episodes is, you know, pretty much everything as for dads, like it's very easy for us to disconnect. It's very easy for us to not be present at home because whatever reason we want to come up with. But whenever you said show them, I think that's kind of key when it comes to leading as a dad. You know, we think about leadership and we think about how do we lead families. Well, part of that intentionality is showing them. So if I guarantee, like if your daughter were to walk alongside you in any sort of missional aspect, whether that is a local mission here, whether it's I know we started some churches, other cities, like if it was there or going overseas, like they're watching you carry out the vision and the mission that God's given you by sharing the gospel with somebody else.
Yeah. And more, sorry.
No, go ahead.
More like to apply it more. Like when Isla, that's my daughter, when she was going to the church, for instance, for pre-K, like, and before Ty got here, I was doing Shoes for Souls, and so I'd take her with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she would sit there, but she was seeing it, you
Yeah.
know, or I would take her to unload the Christmas bags.
Yeah.
And let her carry some, just letting them do it, even though they're small, is huge.
Yeah. And getting our kids to be a part of our life.
Yeah.
Which I know that sounds very simplistic on its on the just this part of the conversation, but man, whenever if we want and get our children as dads to be a part of what we're doing, man, it speaks way more loudly than the screen or the phone or whatever, because they're a part of what we're doing and they're seeing the intentionality, they're seeing the gospel-minded stuff. So
we've talked about that before in past episodes, is bringing them involved, but it's so easy to blow past that too.
It is,
because like I can get it done.
Yeah,
and get it done a lot easier if they're not here.
It'd be a lot easier, or I can let it be a teaching moment, let them see. And I think creating this missional mindset for me with my 5-year-old is way more inquisitive. Brody's along for the ride, but Lucy's she wants to know why. Why are you going there?
Yeah.
What are you going to be doing?
Yeah.
And so for the longest time, on a Wednesday night or a camp or anything, hey, I get to go tell the big kids about Jesus. And now she's asking even more questions.
Yeah.
And baptism. She's asking, oh, did your big kid, they got baptized? I saw you baptize your big kid. She's putting the pieces together.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that, getting to let them come along with me and to see it instead of just hearing about it.
I can't wait for her to go, hey, Daddy, what's your theological view on the hypostatic union? And you have to be able to, answer that real quick.
Let's break open the word.
Yeah.
Let's go to Romans.
She's going to give you a run for your
money,
money,
bro. What is the
bro.
Assembly God view on that?
Well, I don't know if they have one.
Oh, okay.
That was good.
That
was
good.
perfect.
I don't know
That
if
was
I can
good.
spell hyperstatic union, so that's pretty good.
Hypo.
It's not hyper. Anyway.
Do you feel like people think that missions is a program of the church?
I feel like a lot of people think it's unattainable.
Wow.
I can't afford that.
Yeah.
But I can promise you there are people in our church alone who would help you go. Who would help people go.
Right.
Who would love to. Older folks who can't go.
Why? Talk a little bit more about that. That's a really good point. Why do you think, why would somebody in the church pay money to send somebody else to go someplace to do missions?
Well, first off, I would say people would say, well, I can't take a week off work. Well, you can. What are you going to sacrifice?
Yeah.
Instead of that. I think I mentioned this to you guys yesterday. Your kids are going to get way more out of going to Honduras for a week than they are to Disney for a week.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's going to be cheaper. But I'm not saying Disney's a bad thing, but I'm saying spiritually, they're going to get so much more out of that, and they're going to remember that longer than going to Disney. But what was your question again? Why would somebody pay?
Yep.
The older folks, because they don't feel like they can go.
Sure.
And they have expendable money. And so, all you got to do is write letters.
What is that?
Right.
Yeah, and I write. I tell people to write letters.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So here's the thing. If we are teaching our children that model, right? If we're teaching our children what it means to be missional, if we're teaching our children what it means to think about somebody else above our own needs, then all of a sudden we as dads can change the culture of the church.
Yeah.
We can change the culture of a generation by going, hey, you may not be able to do something in your life, or you may not be able to do something because of whatever thing or whatever, but if they follow our example and they see what we're doing intentionally. I mean, I remember the things that my dad has said and done, and I try to mimic some of those things. If our children would start to remember and see that we are intentional about the gospel, intentional about missions, then all of a sudden, like, we can look back and go, hey, that's my kid paying for somebody to go on a mission. Like, I think it would change and maybe that thought of what's just unattainable kind of goes out of the way, because now it is part of the culture.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that's a big question. It's a big thought, but I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Like, why not start now?
And I think it goes back to maybe even a fundamental misunderstanding of what missions is supposed to be for the believer. I mean, when you actually think about that, it's like, oh, well, like, back to your point, I can't take a week off work. It's like, well,
you already do
Matthew 28 would say the opposite. I mean, like, this is why you have breath, is to be a missionary, right? And we talked about the difference between evangelism, which is kind of what we do in our everyday contexts of, sharing, versus this go. But that word was very intentional. Go and make disciples of all nations.
As you were, like, the break it down, it's as you were going. So
I think Dr. Vine said it Sunday. He said, the call of the unbeliever is to come. The call of believer is to go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just thought that was really good.
Yeah. No.
I mean, that is the purpose. And,
for sure.
And the majority of our churches, not our church, I'm saying it is the case in our church too, but the majority of people who go to church, they come on a Sunday and that's it.
Yep. Exactly.
And it's checking a box, and that's not what God has called us to do.
Right. Yep. Right. And, and you're seeing we are seeing and again, to your point, I think we're very blessed at, the church that we go to see missions being done and evangelism being done, and that's obviously being modeled top down from our leader. And again, very blessed to be a part of a church that, does hold those things, very biblically and takes that very important. But I do still see everywhere, when we use the word the church, but this, again, that's why I asked earlier, it's a program. It's a thing that we come and that we do, and it's something that, happens, on a Sunday night or, a Wednesday, or, it's a trip that we go to versus it's the reason why each of us as individuals, still have breath, which is to actually go and to make disciples. And we are all, disciples of, we go to this, this kind of goes back to being a dad, fatherhood. Like, we're already showing our kids what's important to them, or what's important to us by how we spend our time. Like you said, if we're saving up all of our money and then we're blowing it on a week at Disney, again, there's nothing wrong with that. But how then is a child that's looking at, the model that's set before them, how are they supposed to distinguish between, okay, missions is way more important, but we never do it. And Disney's not supposed to be nearly as important, but we do it, every year and every spring break, right? And if nobody actually takes the time to show them, no, this is in Scripture, this is what it is, and this is how we do it. I think that's
like from my childhood, like my dad, when I was growing up, I mean, till high school, really, he sang in a Southern gospel group, and most weekends he was gone singing. And but from a very early age, I would go with him, and I could see what he was doing. Instead of just, and I feel like parents these days are like, well, the church will take him on a mission trip.
Yep.
Yeah.
Instead of going with them.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for, like, when I went to Ecuador the first time, my dad was doing like the he was the interim music guy at Highland Park, and he wasn't taking money or anything, and so Pastor Stephen was like, well, you can go with us, and they were like, I don't know, and I'm like, I would love for y'all to go.
Wow.
To see it. And then, I mean, they went to Honduras last year, because I just never went on mission trips when I was young, but my dad was doing that every weekend. My mom was taking me to church, so it was like, but I knew when I got to a certain age, I knew why he was going, and it was to share the gospel. He was singing, but they were sharing the gospel.
Yeah. And there's no way that didn't make a huge impact.
No,
like you now. I mean,
for sure. Yeah.
I remember,
musically and spiritually.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I remember going to Belize. It was actually, I got back. I don't recommend this. I got back, and then the very next weekend I got married. But I'll never forget, there was we had a lot of different people on this trip.
To Catherine?
To Catherine.
Oh, okay, good.
Yep.
Wait, what do you not recommend?
One and done. Going on a global missions trip, less than 5 days before you get married.
Good clarification.
Good.
I recommend marriage.
Okay.
I recommend missions. I recommend maybe not doing those within 1 week of each other.
Got you.
But there was a full family, a whole family went on the trip. It was a student trip or whatever. But there was a pediatric surgeon here in the city, and he took his whole family on a missions trip to Belize. And I remember thinking to myself, thinking about marriage 5 days later. One day I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take my whole family on a missions trip. I did not know at the time that was going to probably cost me $100,000 because I would have 5 children at least. But
Pick 2.
thank goodness Cory just told me actually that somebody at the church is probably gonna help me get there, or else I'm not gonna be able to go. But
Yeah.
He meant him. He's going to cut you a check.
Who is, Cory?
Yeah, just for you to go on missions.
Come on.
Yeah.
I know a guy who just got a $765 million contract.
Oh, you know him?
I mean, we could write him a letter.
You could write him a letter. I
Yeah.
know someone that could probably send him a text.
Yeah.
So pretty excited about that.
Yeah. Hey, missions are important. Being intentional about it in the family is huge. And I can't imagine how culture would be different if more dads were intentional about missional.
I mean, we're talking about being intentional. The Mormons do it really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they're not sharing the gospel.
That's a
The
whole
proper
nother
gospel.
podcast.
Well, I'm just saying,
Dang.
they are very intentional about
From the
it.
time they're
and
born.
The religion has
Cory
spread.
Gann, number 2 episode.
Yeah.
Mormonism.
Mormons.
That's right.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah. Be good.
We probably won't do that, but
Every country you go to,
I will
you see them
sit
with their
on that
white
one.
shirt and ties. You see them there. They're in every country.
hey, we got to get to work, dads.
Yep.
In America, sharing the truth, sharing the gospel. Well, Cory,
Yep.
I'm glad you were here. I didn't know
It was
how it was
fun.
going to go. I thought you were going to say better things about me, but whatever.
Well,
I really do love you, man.
that's good.
This is exactly
Just
how I
say
thought
it.
it was
I
going
am
to
glad
go.
you're here, Cory. I love you.
Gosh.
Love you too, Rob.
Dang it. Come on, man. Like, look, here's the, whatever. Ty, you got anything?
Cory and I usually do our hugs off camera, so
Oh, okay.
we'll wait.
Well, anyway.
Yep.
It's good
Thanks.
working with you. I'm glad we're friends.
Thanks for letting me be here. It was fun.
I'm glad you're a part of our staff. I'm glad you're our missions guy.
Yep. Glad to be here.
I really, really want you to say it one day publicly. Anyway, hey,
This is too public.
Yeah.
thanks for watching Every Dad Podcast. We will see you next time. So we got stuff to say. Shout out to Sola Coffee Bar. Shout out to What's Up Media. Shout out to Debo running our stuff.
Let's go.
Highland Park Baptist Church. We need you to like and subscribe and comment and all those things, all these little buttons on the bottom of your screen.
If you made it to the end of the episode, that means you are a true fan. So I need you to go comment, leave a review, and tell all your friends to do the same thing.
And subscribe on YouTube.
And make sure you subscribe on YouTube.
Thank you.
Every Dad Podcast. See you soon.
Bye.
Toodles.